Guess I'm gonna have to report you as missing.
Quantum Error is the best modern example I can think of when it comes to a game that attempts to do so much and yet fails at almost all of it. The main exception is that as a science fiction horror game, it's oozing with style and will find every chance it can to flash its moody, creepy world at you. It's when you have to fight through it with shoddy gunplay against empty-headed enemies, sneak around with rudimentary stealth mechanics that barely work as advertised, or get up to the various door chopping and fire extinguishing tasks that impede your path to a dark secret, that you start to realize that you don't need to know much about theoretical physics to see the survival horror-shaped error sitting right in front of you. The hero of this crooked tale of eldritch artifacts and the people they mutilate along the way is Jacob, a former soldier-turned-fire safety professional who's got a lot going on, but none of it makes him a memorable character. You'll get lots of opportunities to exercise his trigger finger and axe-swinging arms as he slinks through a lockdown mining facility on one of Jupiter's moons that is equal parts Shadow Moses and Event Horizon. He's a bland tea biscuit of a character with all the stereotypical 2010-era lead features, including the death of his brother driving his completely uncompromising and off-putting need to save everyone all the time.
10 years it's been.
Surprisingly, it's the firefighting segments that have the most potential here. There's almost a job simulator sort of zen to successfully venting rooms that contain active fire so that cutting through its door doesn't get you fried by a backdraft, or chasing a gas leak to its source and clamping a pipe with the jaws of life to shut it down. Beyond that, however, the ideas flame out. Some other life-saving activities include using CPR to revive victims, complete with blowing into the DualSense mic to give the patient air, and escorting panicking people to safety, but these are more annoying than interesting. All told, there's desperately little meat on this bone, and the disjointed little nibbles you get during the main campaign didn't challenge me outside of making entering rooms more complicated. Traveling between the fire-branded, blood-soaked halls of the Monad facility is already pretty complicated though, because it's crawling with ravenous zombies and flesh-twisted monstrosities. Ironically, the living human enemies, mostly gunmen from the evil mercenary group Medusa, are often more mindless than the reanimated corpses, walking in broken patrol loops, or literally letting you walk by them without much resistance. They can be evasive, especially if you catch one off guard, but they won't put obstacles between you and your bullets for very long. Contrast that with the monsters, who come in various shapes and sizes, but all basically just run at you, soaking up bullets like the world's juiciest sponge. My 18-hour journey took me well beyond the halls of this facility, but be it on the surface of Neptune or deep underground in a Martian mine, the bulk of the resistance came from the same repetitive handful of enemy types. On hard difficulty, I didn't find many creatures that were too tough to deal with, and I'd figure that has something to do with all the bad decision making that they do with their assumptively higher damage and health. I wouldn't call anything about Quantum Error scary per se. It's definitely weird and sometimes unsettling to wander the halls and listen to the very bad things happening somewhere in the distance, or watching cutscenes that linger on an uncomfortable, are they possessed or nah, smile, or gaze just a little bit too long. But the most frightening occurrence I had was navigating the tricky stretches of play between the unmerciful checkpoint placement. Outside of important events and cutscenes, you can only save by visiting specific rooms and using a special machine. And that would be fine, except that it feels bad to lose any and all progress to an immensely cheap surprise, like a completely invisible enemy sucking the air right out of your lungs from a corner in the room. That turns what could potentially be a 15-minute span of debris cleaning and face beating into upwards of an hour depending on your resources and how well you react to the next surprise. Every time you respawn, everything else respawns too, including health and ammo pickups, and any monsters on that floor you've previously dispatched. This can make backtracking to stock up on alien-killing sundries a real chore, because they're all back in full force. It's also a bit buggy. On many occasions, I'd respawn, but an event that's happened to the station, like a full power outage triggered by entering a specific room several halls away, didn't reset, meaning now, not only did I have to retrace all my steps and re-kill all these bad guys, but I'd have to do it in the dark. It doesn't help that many of these halls look just similar enough that you can get turned around with ease. And the maps, which you can only access at static positions on any given floor, are often unhelpful and, in some cases, incomplete. On a few occasions, quantum error broke even further, flashing me suddenly into parts of the map and with enemies I would later learn I am not supposed to see until many hours later. I don't think these are the errors that the title was referring to. Stealth is said to be an option, but I found it to be mostly a waste. Enemies seem to have a supernatural awareness of your presence, sensing you from several rooms away between layers of walls and doors. You'll see that they know you're there, marked by a red icon in the bottom of the screen, long before you'll actually see them. Sometimes this means bad guys will home in across some unknown stretch of the labs to punch you in the face. Other times it means that an enemy will walk in circles and never actually come to get you at all. So I often chose to make a lot of noise myself, embracing the full plethora of firearms and firefighting tools that can double as weapons in a pinch. Even if it's the better option over stealth, gunplay is finicky. Much of the tension in combat comes from the battle you have to win against your unresponsive weapon wheels. It often takes multiple tries to even pull it up, and regularly ends up selecting weapons next to the ones I actually wanted. The weapons themselves work around as reliably as their counterparts in the dozens of games you've seen them in. A pistol with a silencer for quiet kills and cleanups, your shotgun for big power up close, sci-fi rifle for accuracy at longer ranges, etc. Very few guns in the overall arsenal break the mold in any way. An early find uses magma and 4 barrels to somehow be barely as useful as your regular non-lava shotgun. Your heavy tools come in all shapes and sizes though, and help in a pinch if you've run out of ammo and need to take threats down in melee. I found the Jaws of Life to, somewhat ironically, be a clutch melee alternative to swinging axes or hammers, as the clamp of the forks does tons of satisfying damage. It's the moments between combat or sneaking around that stand out. Quantum Error uses sparse lighting and lots of prestige horror-inspired camera work to really nail the creepy mood. There's so many long cuts, slow pans, and unsettling zooms that sometimes the cutscenes feel like an A24 fan letter. You're going to see a lot of them over the campaign, some popping in at awkward times, slamming the action to a halt so fast that the HUD and occasional weapon sound may break into the presentation. Faces mostly look great, but textures on clothing and some surfaces are hazy. Even so, these cinematics were never ugly, even if some of the writing and acting felt cliche and predictable.
Is this how you greet all the women in your life?
There may be many twists and turns in this plot, but none of them proved interesting or ever surprising in the end.
What's wrong?
I don't know.
If your goal this Halloween season is to scare up some heart-pounding, palm-sweating first-person horror action, Quantum Error should be low on your list of priorities. Its stylish and unsettling camera work suggests a depth and mystery that is just not here. Instead, you'll be terrorized by some extremely stupid and repetitive monsters and tortured by a painfully austere checkpoint system that comes with sometimes game-breaking respawns. Weapons are competent but rather mundane for the rich and moody sci-fi setting, and the ghost of missed opportunity haunts the firefighting system, which appears robust mechanically but is given almost no opportunity to justify its inclusion at all. For more, check out our reviews of RoboCop Rogue City or Alan Wake 2, and for everything else, stick with IGN.